friends, and colleagues. This is episode 23 in our series, Enhancing Human Relationships Through the Fourth R, the relationship skills. And this will be a review of the 7 ego states of transactional analysis. So let's show you the 7 ego states first. We have 2 in the parent ego state. Whoops, let me get this properly. We have the critical parent and the nurturing parent. That's 2. We have the adult ego state, that's 3. And in the child ego state, we have the natural child, rebellious child, little professor, and adapted child, or compliant child. And that represents the 7 ego states of transactional analysis. So we're going to review all of these states, and we'll look first at the adult ego state, which simply is that part of us that gives information and asks questions. That's in your adult. So the adult ego state in us could ask such a question: what are ego states? And the answer is that ego states are 7 different ways of expressing our values, our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors. That means anytime we communicate with ourselves and with others, we're communicating from a different ego state. If we're simply giving information or asking questions, it comes from the adult. So let's talk about now the 2 parent ego states which share values. You have the critical parent and you have the nurturing parent. Now, the critical parent basically tells you what not to do. It could tell it to yourself, or it could tell you to others, tell others, don't do this. This is wrong. This is the right thing to do. I want you to follow what I'm saying. It's called the critical parent. Anytime you hear in yourself saying to yourself, don't do this, that's the critical parent. On the other hand, the nurturing parent gives you permission to do things. You can do this. It's fine. It's okay. That's perfectly all right. So we have the parent ego state, which shares the values, what you should do and what you should not do. We have the adult ego state that gives information and asks questions. And finally, we have 4 ego states within the child ego state. The natural child does whatever he or she wants to do. Says to himself, I can do whatever I want because I'm free. Now, the rebellious child in the child ego state feels he or she can do whatever he or she wants to do, even at the expense of others. So this rebellious child within us, right? All of these ego states are within us, is the part of in us that is rebellious and can sometimes even hurt others. The adapted or the compliant child within us is that part of the child that does what he or she is supposed to do. That child might say, I do what I am supposed to do because I am the good one. And the little professor is the creative part of the child ego state, the intuitive part, the non-traditional thinking ego part, the child part. But the little professor can also make people do things that they don't really wish to do. He or she might say to himself, let's see if I can get someone to do something they may not want to normally do. So there are your 3 ego states. The child ego state deals with feelings and behaviors. The adult ego state gives information, asks questions. And the parent ego state shares your values. Later on in the series, we'll talk about what are good transactions and what are not good transactions. Now, before we terminate this 23rd episode, I want to show you an ego state graph that I wrote And this shows what percentage I like to be in. I like to have a 40% of me, I'd like to be in my adult. I have a lot of natural child, maybe 15%. I have 15% of adapted or compliant child. Nurturing parent is around 15%, give myself permission to do things. Critical parent, 10%. I don't like to criticize myself or others. Maybe I have 3% rebellious child at this stage of my life, and maybe 2% the little professor. Now, we recommend that you have a discussion with your family and your friends on the 7 ego states of transactional analysis, and you may even choose, if you wish, to create an ego state graph for yourself or the members of your family or your friends or your colleagues, etc. And you may have an interesting conversation with them on how they perceive you. To what extent do you come from the adult or the natural child or the adaptive child, etc. Now, in our next episode, we will discuss complementary and crossed or non-complementary transactions of transactional analysis. Hope you'll watch that in episode 24. And if you wish to offer questions or comments on this video series, you can reach me at rdsolomonphd@gmail.com. Or you can comment on my Facebook page, my Twitter page, or my YouTube account. If you want a copy of these two handouts, you can get them by taking a screenshot of these two handouts on my Facebook page. Lastly, I want to thank you for being a vital part of our video series on the 4th R, the relationships skills, and we'll see you next time. Bye, and thank you so much for being a part of our program.